On a sun-drenched afternoon in the sprawling heart of Texas, where the oil rigs pierced the sky like triumphant spears, I stood on the veranda of my family's historic ranch, gazing out at the endless horizon. The warm breeze carried the scent of wildflowers and distant cattle, a familiar comfort that had grounded me through decades of life's ups and downs. 50 years of marriage to Harlan Hayes, the legendary oil tycoon, had brought me here, to this moment of supposed celebration. But as the guests arrived in their gleaming pickup trucks and designer cowboy boots for our golden anniversary bash, I couldn't shake the unease gnawing at my insides like a persistent thorn. Little did I know, the golden surprise awaiting me wasn't a heartfelt toast to enduring love, but a betrayal that would shatter everything I thought I knew, and ultimately rebuild it stronger than ever before. Let me take you back to the very beginning, because to truly understand how I ended up turning the tables on my husband of 50 years in front of Houston's elite, you need to know where it all started. My name is Eleanor Hayes, and I was born into a modest ranching family on the dusty plains just outside Houston. Back in those days, life was simple and straightforward. Waking up at dawn to help with chores, family dinners around a worn wooden table where we shared stories and laughter, and the kind of core values like honesty and hard work that stick with you forever, shaping who you become. I remember the endless summers playing in the fields, chasing fireflies as the sun set, dreaming of a future beyond the fence lines. That's where I developed my sharp mind for numbers. I'd help my father balance the books for our small cattle operation, learning early on that every penny counted in a world as unpredictable as Texas weather. I met Harlan at a county fair when I was just 22. The air was thick with the smells of cotton candy and fried dough, and the sounds of carnival games and livestock shows filled the evening. He was this brash, ambitious young man with a twinkle in his eye and dreams of striking it rich in the oil fields of the Permian Basin. Tall, with a confident stride and a laugh that could cut through any crowd, he approached me at the Ferris wheel line, tipping his hat and saying, "Ma'am, you look like someone who knows how to handle more than just a carnival ride." I was practical, grounded, with that head for numbers I had honed on the ranch. We talked for hours that night about our hopes and fears, and by the time the fair lights dimmed, I knew there was something special there. We fell in love fast, the way you do when you're young and the world feels full of endless possibilities, unscarred by time's harsh lessons. We married in a simple ceremony under the sprawling live oak trees on my parents' land, surrounded by family and a few close friends. I remember the vows like it was yesterday, promising to build a life together through the booms and busts of the oil industry, for better or worse, in sickness and health. Harlan was going to be the big shot tycoon, chasing black gold across the state, and I was going to be the steady hand behind him, managing the home and keeping our world in balance. For 50 years, that's exactly what happened. He founded Hayes Energy, turning it into a powerhouse in Texas oil through sheer determination and a bit of luck with some early strikes. I managed the home front, raised our two wonderful children, Jake, our adventurous son who followed in his father's footsteps in the energy business, and Sarah, our thoughtful daughter who became a teacher, and handled the family's finances with the precision of a surgeon. Our ranch, a vast 5,000-acre spread with rolling green hills, herds of cattle grazing lazily, and a grand stone mansion that we'd renovated over the years, became our sanctuary from the chaos of the business world. It was gifted to me by my parents just before the wedding, a premarital asset that I cherished deeply as my own piece of family heritage. Harlan's name was added to the deed later as a symbol of our partnership, but it was always mine at its core, a reminder of my roots. But lately, as the years piled on, things had started to feel off in ways I couldn't quite ignore. At 73, I noticed the subtle changes in Harlan, who was 75 and had retired from the active day-to-day management of Hayes Energy a couple of years ago, handing the reins over to a trusted board of directors. Suddenly, he was obsessed with these yoga retreats in Austin, claiming they rejuvenated his weary spirit and kept him feeling young. I'd see him sneaking late-night phone calls in his study, the door cracked just enough for whispers to escape, or overhear hushed conversations with his longtime assistant that would abruptly stop when I entered the room. He'd come home smelling of an unfamiliar cologne, something musky and expensive, with a spring in his step that hadn't been there in years, like he was rediscovering a lost youth. At first, I dismissed it all. Maybe it was just age catching up to him in odd ways, or a late-blooming midlife crisis hitting hard. After all, we'd been through so much together. The lean years when oil prices tanked and we scraped by on savings, the joyful births of our kids in that old Houston hospital, the luxurious vacations to Europe when the booms hit and money flowed like water from a well. Those memories kept me going, but the doubts crept in like shadows at dusk. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling fans spinning lazily, wondering if our golden years were tarnishing before my eyes. The anniversary party was entirely Harlan's idea, and he threw himself into planning it with an enthusiasm I hadn't seen in decades. He insisted on making it a lavish affair right here on the ranch grounds, transforming our peaceful property into a venue fit for royalty. White tents dotted the landscape, like sails on a sea of emerald green grass, strung with twinkling fairy lights that would glow like stars come evening. A live band was booked to play classic country tunes, think Johnny Cash and Dolly Parton, to get everyone dancing under the open sky. Barbecue pits were set up to smoke with the finest brisket and ribs, slow cooked over mesquite wood for that authentic Texas flavor, accompanied by sides like potato salad, cornbread, and pecan pie. And the guest list? Harlan had invited Houston's absolute elite, oil barons in their custom suits, politicians with their polished smiles, socialites decked out in Stetson hats, diamond earrings, and boots that cost more than most folks' monthly rent. I chose a flowing emerald gown that matched the vibrant pastures of the ranch, its fabric soft and elegant against my skin, and I pinned my silver hair up in a style that felt timeless. Harlan looked sharp as ever in his tailored black suit and polished cowboy boots, greeting guests with that booming laugh of his that could fill a room and echo across the fields. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in breathtaking hues of orange, pink, and gold, casting long shadows over the gathering, Harlan clinked his champagne glass for attention. The crowd hushed immediately, gathering around the main stage we'd set up under those strings of twinkling lights. "Friends, family," he began, his voice booming over the speakers like a thunderclap. "Today marks 50 years with this remarkable woman, Eleanor. But I've got a surprise for her, a golden one, fitting for our golden anniversary." My heart fluttered with a mix of anticipation and that lingering unease. Maybe it was a romantic trip to Paris, something we'd always talked about but never done. Or that antique necklace I'd admired in a catalog during one of our quiet evenings. Instead, he pulled a thick envelope from his inner jacket pocket, holding it up like a trophy. "Eleanor, my dear," he said, his tone shifting to something cold and calculated, "after 50 years, it's time for a new chapter in my life. These are divorce papers. I want to start fresh, with someone who matches my energy now, someone who makes me feel alive again. Gasps rippled through the crowd like a wave, shock etched on every face. My world tilted on its axis, the ground feeling unsteady beneath my feet. Standing beside him on that stage, I saw her, the young woman in the front row, Leela, his yoga instructor, barely 30 years old, with sun-kissed skin, flowing blonde hair, and a smug smile playing on her perfectly glossed lips. I found love again, Harlan continued, as if he hadn't just dropped a devastating bomb in front of everyone we knew. With Leela, she's brought light back into my days. And Eleanor, you'll need to vacate the ranch by month's end. It's only fair. We built this together, and now it's time to divide it. The guests murmured in shock, a low buzz of disbelief filling the air. Our children, Jake and Sarah, stood frozen nearby, their faces pale with disbelief and hurt, Sarah's hand clutching her husband's arm for support. But Harlan pressed on, undeterred by the growing tension, his voice steady as if he'd rehearsed this moment. I've consulted the best lawyers in Houston. The ranch is marital property. We'll divide it equitably and everyone can move on. I felt a fire ignite within me, hot and fierce like a Texas wildfire raging across dry grasslands. For weeks, I'd suspected something was terribly wrong, the pieces of the puzzle slowly coming together in my mind. The odd withdrawals from our joint bank accounts, tens of thousands vanishing into what he vaguely called business expenses that never added up. The hushed conversations with his accountant that would stop abruptly when I entered the room, leaving an awkward silence. The way he'd avoid my eyes during dinner, picking at his food while checking his phone under the table. I had hired a private investigator quietly, a man named Tom Ramirez, an ex-cop from Houston with a reputation for discretion and thoroughness. His report had confirmed my worst fears: the steamy affair with Elila, the embezzlement of funds to finance their secret life. But I had an ace up my sleeve, something Harlan didn't know about and could never have anticipated. An inheritance from my late Uncle Cyrus, a reclusive fracking pioneer who'd passed away 6 months earlier from a sudden illness, leaving me a controlling stake in his thriving company worth millions upon millions. I stepped forward, my hand steady despite the storm inside, and took the microphone from his stunned grasp. "Harlan, darling," I said, my voice as strong and unyielding as Texas steel, cutting through the murmurs like a knife. "You've always been one for dramatics, haven't you? But let's set the record straight, right here, in front of everyone who's come to celebrate what you just turned into a spectacle." The crowd leaned in closer, the band falling completely silent, the only sound the distant lowing of cattle. First off, this ranch, it was gifted to me by my parents before we even married. It's a premarital asset, Harlan, not something you can claim as your own. Your name was added to the deed 2 months after the wedding as a gesture of our union, but legally, it's mine and mine alone. I have the original deeds right here in my purse, notarized and irrefutable. I pulled out the folder I'd prepared weeks ago, waving the yellow documents for all to see, the paper crinkling in my hand. Whispers turned to nods of approval from the guests, some of whom were old family friends who remembered my parents and their generosity. "And that fresh start you're so excited about with Leela?" I continued, my gaze locking onto hers in the crowd, watching her smug expression falter. "It's been funded by embezzling from our joint accounts. $50,000 siphoned off bit by bit for lavish gifts, romantic trips, even a down payment on a cozy condo in Austin for the two of you to play house in. My investigator has the receipts, the bank statements, the trail of deceit, everything laid out clear as day. Harlan's face drained of all color, his confident stance crumbling like dry dirt underfoot. Lila shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her smile fading into something like raw panic, her hands twisting in her lap. But wait, I continued, my eyes sparkling with the resolve I'd built over those painful, sleepless weeks. There's more to this story than you could ever imagine. Uncle Cyrus, my mother's brother, left me his entire fracking empire when he passed. That's a 60% stake in Cyrus Fractech, valued at over $150 million, plus cash reserves and properties that ensure my future is secure. While you've been playing house and scheming behind my back, I've been stepping into real power. I'm the new majority owner, and this betrayal is just the push I needed to claim it fully. The guests erupted, some in thunderous applause that echoed across the ranch, others in outraged shouts directed at Harlan, voices overlapping in a cacophony of support and condemnation. His business partners scowled from the back, arms crossed, and I could hear whispers of fraud and scandal spreading like wildfire through the crowd, phones already out to text the news. My son Jake stepped up onto the stage, wrapping a protective arm around me in a tight hug. "Mom, we're with you all the way," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, his voice thick with emotion. Sarah joined us, tears in her eyes, but a proud smile on her face. Harlan stammered, his voice cracking for the first time I could remember in our long marriage. "Eleanor, this is all a terrible misunderstanding. We can talk about this privately, work it out like we always have." "No, Harlan," I replied firmly, feeling a surge of empowerment course through me like adrenaline. "You've made your bed in front of all these people who thought they knew us. Now you can lie in it. Elsewhere. The party's over for you, and so is this chapter." As security, friends of the family who'd volunteered for the event, big burly ranch hands in suits, escorted Harlan and Lila off the property, their footsteps crunching on the gravel drive. The crowd rallied around me with a warmth that healed some of the hurt. Toasts shifted from anniversary cheers to salutes for my strength, glasses clinking in solidarity. "Here's to Eleanor, the real Tycoon," someone shouted, and laughter mixed with applause. That night, under the vast Texas stars twinkling like diamonds in the velvet sky, I sat with my children and grandchildren on the veranda, planning my future as the new CEO of Cyrus Fractech, the weight of betrayal lifting as we talked and laughed into the wee hours. In the months that followed, Harlan's world came crashing down around him like a derrick in a storm. Lawsuits from the embezzlement claims stripped him of what assets he had left, the courts ruling in my favor after seeing the mountain of evidence. Hayes Energy distanced itself from him entirely, the board issuing a statement condemning his actions, his reputation tarnished beyond repair in the tight-knit oil community where word travels faster than a pipeline leak. He ended up in a cramped, one-bedroom apartment in Dallas, driving for a rideshare service to make ends meet, ferrying strangers through the bustling city streets while regretting the hubris that had led him there, his once luxurious life reduced to tips and traffic. As for me, I thrived like never before, blooming in ways I hadn't imagined possible at my age. Taking the helm as CEO of Cyrus Fractech, I pushed for innovative, sustainable fracking methods, reducing environmental impact with new tech that cut water usage and captured methane emissions, turning the company into a leader in green energy while keeping the profits flowing strong. The ranch became more than just a home. I turned it into a hub for women's empowerment retreats, hosting workshops and events for ladies who'd faced their own betrayals, sharing stories around campfires, and offering tools for financial independence. At 73, I felt reborn, proof that even in the shadow of betrayal, you can strike gold anew, emerging stronger and wiser. But to really understand how I got to that point, let's rewind a bit further into the details of those dark days. I want to share them because if you're watching this on YouTube, sitting in your living room or on your commute, maybe my story can help someone going through something similar, giving you the courage to face your own storms. It all started with those little suspicions that I couldn't ignore anymore, the kind that start as a whisper and grow into a roar. One evening, about 3 months before the party, I was sitting in my cozy home office, going through our bank statements, something I'd always done to keep things in order, but Harlan had started handling more of it lately, saying he wanted to lighten my load. I noticed the discrepancies right away. A $10,000 cash withdrawal labeled as equipment for the ranch? But we hadn't bought any new equipment. The tractors were fine, the fences sturdy. Then another $5,000 to a high-end jewelry store in Austin, a place I'd never heard of. My heart sunk like a stone in a pond, ripples of doubt spreading through me. I logged into our shared accounts online that night, something I hadn't felt the need to do in years because I'd trusted him implicitly, blindly even. What I found chilled me to the bone. Transfers to luxury hotels for conferences that weren't on his calendar, payments to a real estate agent for viewings of properties I knew nothing about, even charges for romantic dinners at places we'd never been together. Piecing it together, I recalled Harlan's new obsession with yoga. He'd started classes a year ago at a fancy studio in Austin, raving about his instructor, Leela Voss. She was this lithe, ambitious young woman who'd moved from California, chasing dreams in the wellness world, posting inspirational quotes on social media about living your best life. Harlan would come home from sessions glowing, talking about how she understood the body and mind in ways that renewed him. I didn't confront him right away. Instead, I stewed on it for a day or two, my mind racing with possibilities. Then I hired PI Tom Ramirez, a discreet ex-cop from Houston who'd come highly recommended by a close friend who'd gone through her own divorce. I met him in a quiet coffee shop on the outskirts of town, away from prying eyes and small-town gossip. "Mrs. Hayes," he said, shaking my hand with a firm grip, "what can I do for you today?" "I think my husband is having an affair," I told him plainly, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. "And there might be financial foul play involved. I need solid proof, something I can use if it comes to that." Tom nodded. No judgment in his weathered eyes, just professional focus. "I'll get to the bottom of it. Give me 2 weeks and I'll have a full report." His report came back sooner than expected, delivered in a plain manila envelope at another discreet meeting. It was damning, page after page of evidence. Photos of Harlan and Leela at cozy dinners and hidden bistros, their hands intertwined across the table. Snapshots of weekends away at luxury resorts, walking arm in arm on private beaches. Even images of them shopping for what looked like engagement rings in a high-end jewelry store, Leela's face lit up with excitement. "He's planning something big," Tom warned me over coffee, his voice low. "From what I've overheard in conversations and seen in emails, he left his laptop open at a cafe once. Rookie mistake. He's gearing up for a divorce. Wants to blindside you at the anniversary party, make it public to pressure you into signing away your rights." The news hit me like a freight train, but it also lit a fire under me. Then came the inheritance news, like a gift from above just when I needed it most to turn the tide. Uncle Cyrus was an enigmatic figure in our family tales. The kind of relative who'd send Christmas cards but never show up for holidays. He'd left Texas as a young man, chasing oil up in the Bakken fields of North Dakota, building an empire quietly while avoiding the spotlight and family gatherings. His death from a sudden heart attack at 85 left no immediate family, so his lawyer tracked me down with a courier package containing the will. The will reading was done via video call with the lawyer, a stern man from Bismarck with a thick accent. "Miss Hayes," he said, adjusting his glasses, "your uncle admired your financial acumen from afar. He'd followed your life through family updates. He leaves you the controlling interest in Cyrus Fractech, valued at approximately $150 million, plus $5 million in liquid assets and various properties scattered across the states." I was stunned, sitting there in my home office with the door locked so Harlan wouldn't walk in unexpectedly. "Why me? We weren't close," I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "He said in his notes that you were the only one in the family with the grit and smarts to handle it responsibly without squandering it on frivolities." The lawyer replied matter-of-factly, "I kept it all secret, consulting my own lawyers in Houston to protect it as separate property, ensuring Harlan couldn't touch a dime." Meanwhile, his scheming deepened, the signs becoming harder to ignore. I'd overhear calls to his attorney late at night when he thought I was asleep in our bed. "Make sure the ranch is divisible. She's got nothing without me. I'll hit her with the papers at the party, publicly, so she can't fight back and make a scene." The party planning intensified in those final weeks. Harlan insisted on inviting Houston's who's who: senators with their entourages, CEOs of rival energy companies, influencers from the oil world with their flashy cars. To celebrate us in style, he said with a wink that now made my skin crawl, but I could sense he was setting the stage for my public humiliation, like a director orchestrating a tragic play. On the day of the party, as guests arrived in waves, parking their vehicles in the designated field, I felt a mix of dread and determination churning inside me. My daughter Sarah pulled me aside in the bustling kitchen, where caterers were prepping trays of appetizers. "Mom, you seem off today. Is everything okay with Dad? He's been acting strange." "Just fine, dear," I replied, clutching the folder in my purse like a lifeline, its weight reassuring. "It's going to be a night to remember, that's for sure." The party kicked off at sunset, the sky a canvas of fiery colors. Caterers served up the best Texas barbecue I'd ever tasted, brisket smoked for hours over mesquite, falling off the bone tender, juicy sausage links grilled to perfection, creamy coleslaw with just the right tang, and baked beans seasoned with secret family recipes. The band played Willie Nelson hits, their guitars strumming melodies that got folks tapping their feet, and laughter echoed across the lawn as people mingled, sharing stories of old deals and new ventures. Harlan was in his element, backslapping old friends with that charismatic energy of his. 50 years, boys! Can you believe it? Ellie's been my rock through it all," he boasted, but his words rang hollow to me now. I chatted with the wives, sharing small talk about grandkids' antics and favorite recipes, but my mind was laser-focused on the folder, the deeds, the bank statements, the inheritance papers that would change everything. When Harlan took the stage, the betrayal unfolded exactly as Tom had predicted, his words cutting deep like a knife twisted slowly. 50 years was good, but I deserve more. Leela understands me in ways Eleanor never could, brings a spark I thought was lost. But my rebuttal? That was pure Texas justice, delivered with the calm of someone who'd prepared for war. Exposing the embezzlement, $50,000 total, funneled to Leela's whims through clever transfers, sealed his fate. Board members from Hayes Energy pulled him aside right after the party, their faces stern. "This is fraud, Harlan. We're launching an internal investigation first thing tomorrow morning."
Leela fled the scene in a hurry, but not before I overheard her hissing at Harlan as they were escorted out, her voice sharp. "You said you'd handle this smoothly. Now what? I quit my job for you, for this promise of a new life."
In the days that followed, the fallout was immediate and relentless. News spread through Houston's social circles like gossip at a church supper, phones ringing off the hook with friends offering support. The Houston Chronicle even ran a front-page headline: "Oil Tycoon's Golden Anniversary Meltdown. Wife Turns Tables with Secret Fortune," complete with photos from the event that someone had leaked. Harlan tried calling, sending desperate letters and voicemails. "Ellie, forgive me. I was a fool, blinded by flattery and youth. Let's work this out for old time's sake." I didn't respond, deleting them all without a second thought, focusing instead on my new path. I filed for divorce the very next week, armed with all the evidence Tom had gathered. The court proceedings were a grueling battle, lasting several months with hearings in a stuffy Houston courtroom. Harlan's lawyer, a slick type from a big firm, tried to countersue for the ranch, claiming he'd invested in major improvements over the years: new barns, upgraded fencing, even the mansion's addition. But the original deeds proved my case beyond doubt. It was premarital property, and his investments were minor at best, covered by joint funds I'd managed. In one tense mediation session, he begged across the table, his eyes pleading, "Ellie, let's split everything amicably, for the kids' sake, for our grandkids." "No, Harlan," I said, my voice calm but firm as steel. "You split our family when you chose her and your schemes over us. Now you face the consequences alone." He lost big time in the end. Had to sell his remaining shares in Hayes Energy to pay back the embezzled funds, plus hefty interest and legal fees that piled up like debt on a bad investment. Moved to that tiny, drab one-bedroom apartment in Dallas, starting over as a rideshare driver. His days filled with navigating traffic and picking up passengers who sometimes recognized him with pitying looks. My first board meeting as CEO of Cyrus Fractech was intimidating at first, sitting at the head of a long mahogany table full of suits in a sleek high-rise office overlooking the Houston skyline. "Gentlemen," I said, steadying my nerves, "it's time for real change. Sustainable energy is the future. Let's invest in tech to reduce water usage in our operations and capture more methane to cut emissions, turning this company into a model for the industry." They applauded, surprised but impressed by my vision, and from there, the company soared under my leadership, profits climbing while we did good for the planet. Socially, I bloomed in ways I never expected. I even started dating a kind widower named Robert, whom I met at a charity gala for environmental causes, his gentle smile and shared love for the land drawing me in. "You're inspiring, Eleanor," he said on our first date over dinner at a quiet restaurant. We shared slow dances under the stars at ranch events and peaceful sunsets on the veranda, talking about life and second chances. My grandkids love visiting now more than ever. "Tell us the story again, Grandma," little Timmy says with wide eyes, curling up on the couch. And I do, with lessons woven in. Always know your worth, my dears, and never let anyone take it from you. Stand tall, like those oil rigs against the sky. Harlan's life as a driver taught him humility, I suppose. I heard through the grapevine that he picks up oil execs sometimes in his modest sedan. "Hey, aren't you Harlan Hayes, the big tycoon?" they ask curiously. He nods, humbled by circumstance. Was. Now just driving forward 1 mile at a time. My hook had caught the truth that night, reeling in a future brighter than any gold I'd ever known. But let's dive even deeper. Because this story has layers upon layers, like the sedimentary rock in those vast oil fields we built our lives around. I remember the day my parents gave me the ranch deed as if it were etched in stone. It was a crisp autumn morning in 1973, just weeks before the wedding, the air cool with the promise of change. My father, with his calloused hands from years of ranch work and eyes weathered by sun and worry, handed it to me over breakfast. This land's been in our family for generations, Ellie. It's yours now, your safety net. Marry for love, but always keep something for yourself, something no one can take away. My mother nodded, her eyes full of quiet wisdom gained from her own life's trials. Men come and go, darling, but land endures. It's your anchor. I laughed then, young and full of optimism, hugging them tight. Harlan's different, Mama. He's my forever, my partner in everything. But now, 50 years later, those words were my prophecy come true. A lifeline when I needed it most. Harlan had his own secrets brewing in the shadows. His affair with Lila started innocently enough. A yoga class recommended by a golf buddy during one of his retreats. Lila, with her flexible poses, radiant energy, and flirtatious smiles, made him feel young again, alive in a way he claimed I'd forgotten how to make him feel. "You've still got it, Harlan," she'd whisper after sessions, her hand lingering on his arm a second too long, her eyes locking onto his with intent. One thing led to another. Coffee dates turned into intimate dinners, then stolen weekends and hidden getaways. "Leave her," Lila urged one night in a dimly lit hotel room, her voice seductive. "We can have it all. The ranch, your money, a new life full of passion and adventure." Harlan, blinded by lust and a bruised ego from years of routine, agreed without hesitation. He consulted his lawyer, Jed Thompson, in secret meetings at coffee shops and offices. "How do I get the ranch in the divorce?" he asked eagerly. "Prove you contributed significantly to its value," Jed advised cautiously. "But if it's premarital, it's an uphill battle you might lose." Harlan ignored the warning, forging ahead with the embezzlement. Small amounts at first to test the waters, like $2,000 here for supplies, then bolder transfers that added up quickly. My PI, Tom, was thorough as could be, a true professional. He tailed them to a seedy motel on the outskirts of Austin, snapped incriminating photos through the curtain gaps with his long lens, tracked bank wires to Leela's personal account for personal training fees that were anything but legitimate, building a dossier that was airtight. When Tom delivered the full report to me in person, we met at that same coffee shop, the aroma of fresh brew doing little to ease my nerves. "Is it bad?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly despite my resolve. "Worse than you think, ma'am," he said gravely, sliding the thick folder across the table. "He's planning to blindside you at the anniversary party, wants to humiliate you publicly so you'll sign away your rights without a fight, thinking you're broken." I prepared meticulously after that, gathering every document, alerting my kids subtly so they wouldn't be caught off guard, even practicing my speech in the mirror to ensure my voice didn't waver. Party day arrived with tension thick as morning fog rolling over the fields. Harlan's nervousness was masked as excitement, but I saw through it like clear glass, his forced smiles and quick glances at Leela giving him away. His speech hit like a dry well exploding unexpectedly, but my response turned it into a gusher of justice, flowing with truth and power. After the revelation, the guests' outrage was palpable, a wave of support that buoyed me. "Shame on you, Harlan!" one old friend shouted from the crowd, his face red with anger. Lila's exit was chaotic. She tried sneaking away through the side gate, but a guest spotted her and called out, "Homewrecker, how could you destroy a family like this?" The next day, the media frenzy began in earnest. Calls from reporters flooded my phone, social media buzzing with hashtags like hashtag Golden Betrayal and hashtag Eleanor Strong. Harlan's attempts at apologies came flooding in. Handwritten letters, tearful voicemails. "Ellie, I was a fool, blinded by youth and flattery. Forgive me, please." I deleted them all, focusing on my new chapter with a clear head. The divorce proceedings dragged on, but I had the upper hand every step. In court, the judge, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes, reviewed the evidence meticulously. "Mr. Hayes, your actions are reprehensible and a betrayal of trust," she said before ruling in my favor, her gavel striking like finality. My first steps as CEO were tentative, but I grew into the role with passion. Innovating with eco-friendly tech, the company profited while doing good for the environment and communities. Harlan's downfall was complete. Job loss, social ostracism from former friends, his rideshare gigs were his only income, a far cry from boardrooms. Lila moved on, I heard through mutual acquaintances, to another older man with deep pockets, her pattern repeating. As for me, philanthropy became a true passion, funding women's shelters across Texas, scholarships for girls in STEM fields to empower the next generation. In quiet moments on the veranda, sipping tea as the sun sets, I reflect. Those 50 years weren't wasted at all. They forged my resilience, taught me the value of self-reliance. And in the oil fields, as in life, pressure creates diamonds. Beautiful, unbreakable. If you're still with me after this long tale, thank you for listening to my story from the heart. It's been cathartic sharing it like this, as if we're sitting together under these Texas stars, swapping life lessons. Remember, no matter what betrayal you face or how deep the hurt, you have the power to rise above, to reclaim your story. Subscribe if you want more real-life tales of triumph, and let me know in the comments. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have spoken up on that stage or handled it differently? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, take care and keep shining.